Welcome, Josh. I'm glad to have you here, man.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me, Steve.
Yeah. So, uh, you know what we're gonna do is Josh and I are gonna give you guys a little taste of QuoteWerks and some integrations that QuoteWerks has, including uh, alternative payments. Well, I say in some integrations, but I think we're probably only going to focus on mostly ours. But we'll talk about like Utilize and some other stuff that QuoteWorks can do as well. Um, Before we launch into that, uh, you probably want to know like who are these weird guys on my screen and why should I listen to them? So we're going to tell you a little bit about us. And at the end of this, we're going to have an AMA, ask me anything. And it's not just me, it's Josh too. So uh meanwhile, the chat, the Q&A section, it's all yours, free to use. What I'd like to do is, since we are going to be doing a lot of talking, you guys are going to get to know us really well. And I don't know, that doesn't feel fair to me that you guys know all about us and we don't know anything about you. So I'm going to launch a poll because I would love if we could get to know you better. And it's nothing too invasive. We're not trying to ask you like what specific platforms you're using or anything. We just want to know like what kind of problems are you having today with doing quoting and getting paid. We want to know if you're using a quoting tool, like what kind. We're not going to ask you what one. Same with payment portal. Are you using one? Again, I'm not going to ask you what kind. And then if you want to share more, there's a spot for that too. So I'd love if you could do that. You've already heard a little about my personal financial woes. I assure you, it has nothing to do with alternative payments. All of their money is perfectly. It's all of mine that's chaotic right now. Um, Josh, why don't you
A big book and we do ended here at QuoteWorks and been really excited to work with the team and the solution and stuff to engage from a different perspective with our different MSP clients and prospects. And that being said, I have a passion for business, a passion for evangelizing QuoteWorks as well as the quote to cash process. So really appreciate having this platform today.
Yeah, and I'm super pumped to have you here, Josh. In the short time I've known you, you've been so much fun to work with behind the scenes as we kind of put this thing together. A little bit about me. I'm Steve. I'm in marketing here at Alternative Payments. You may know me before Alternative Payments. I ran Rocket MSP. I did hundreds of like webinars, podcast, YouTube videos for MSPs because I have a passion myself. I ran an MSP. Okay. So I started an MSP back in 2009. I've been an IT professional since 2002. So I know like a lot of what you guys are experiencing. Okay. And when I ran my MSP, I had the fear of rejection, which I still probably do a little bit. Right. And so instead of going out and selling things and doing a lot of quotes, I kept myself busy and I just kept switching tools. I switched to PSA, a cybersecurity platform, an RMM every like 3 to 6 months. I was just switching something because if I kept myself busy, I didn't have to go out and sell. So please don't do that to yourselves. Yeah. But because of that, I got to experience all these cool software platforms. And that's what led me to launch Rocket MSP, where I started doing all these interviews with vendors to learn more about what their software is doing and why they help MSPs. And that kind of gave me the experience and the what's the word I'm looking for? Um, anyway, it made it so I wanted to pivot, right? So I no longer run an MSP today. I'm not even in IT. I'm in marketing, and I love it. I absolutely love where I work. I love alternative payments. I love what we do. I wouldn't work here if that wasn't the case. So all that to say, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Josh, for being here. I'm super pumped about this. I'm going to leave that poll running for like a couple more minutes. We're going to dive into content though, because I promised that this would only be an hour.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to go over unless like everyone has a bazillion questions. Then we might be able to make time for a little more AMA, but we're gonna run a tight ship for you guys. Okay. So with that said, let's put our slide deck up. We're gonna talk about, and I'm trying to, this is just a small part what I'm doing here today. We're and you're talking about minutes. What does that mean, Josh? Quote to cash. That sounds so ambiguous.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seems simple when you say it out loud, but when you start to dive into it, it gets a lot more complex. Quote to cash represents a cycle that many businesses, particularly MSPs, go through, where you have to work with your client to understand what their requirements are. You take those requirements, you translate them into a solution, you quote the customer and present that solution to them. And there's a long cycle involved in that, from, again, the requirements discussion, presenting the solution, quoting that solution, and then realizing the revenue from a successful engagement with the customer. So when we talk about quote to cash, we're really talking about a cycle that goes from that initial requirements discussion all the way through getting paid for the solution that you've presented.
And it looks like everybody's wrapped up this poll, so I'm going to close this here in 10 seconds. It's really interesting, these results, man. So for what problems people are experiencing with their MSPs today, the top two, they're tied. It takes too long to build quotes, and customers want us to order equipment, and but they're not paying us right away. So those are the biggest two problems. And then there's quite a few other problems that they're having. Many people who answered the poll are already using a third-party quoting tool today. Many of them are already using an MSP-focused payment platform. And it looks like a few people even shared some more information, which, we can dig into after the fact. So really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, guys. I appreciate that. All right. So
Yes,
we did talk about some challenges in that poll, but these are the challenges you're going to talk about today, Josh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they align pretty closely. I mean, obviously these challenges that we talk about today are kind of specific to alternative payments and QuoteWerks, but they also are general issues that people may see, and a challenge that businesses have, again, supported by this poll that we have, is collecting payments, right? Not having the correct infrastructure to be able to collect payments in a way that's easy and that you can keep track of. The challenge with that is it leads to customers that really are unsure as to how to pay and what those methods are, and it can lead to long payment lead times. Likewise, some of the challenges that you have are the inability to track customer activity. So, has a customer made a deposit? Are they able to make payments after the initial deposit payment's been made? When can they actually pay in full? What are the terms of that? So, some of those challenges include the lack of payment flexibility. So having different options for your customers as well is a great tool. And then the other challenges I mentioned before is no visibility into deposits or remaining balances. So these are some of the challenges that are presented when it comes to that quote to cash cycle. Now, how do we overcome some of those challenges? Well, ultimately, that's what we're going to be talking about as we move down the line. Now, a lot of the challenges that we just talked about come from the fact that you're using a manual process, right? And the manual process has often been Excel, Word, PDF, right? And the challenge with those is that manual quote creation can be time intensive, complex, and it can extend that quote to cash cycle to be longer than it needs to be. When we're talking about manual quote creation, we've got high margin for error. Doesn't give you that end-to-end visibility into the quote. And there's really also no option for your customers to pay while they're in that quote reviewing the solution. And I think you'll see that as we move into our discussion about QuoteWerks and alternative payments, there's a lot of different things that can be used to accelerate your quote to cash cycle, especially if you're going for manual quote creation. Now, that being said, it sounds like you've got a number of people on the call today that already have a quoting solution. Well, that being said, some of these challenges are still applied when it comes to using other solutions as well. So hopefully, if you're not using QuoteWerks and you're in that bucket of individuals that are using another solution, you'll see how QuoteWerks approaches things in a little bit different of a manner.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we have, I'd say more than half of the people here said that they're already using some type of quoting platform. So I assure you that you're still going to learn something about QuoteWerks. Well, even if you're already using a quoting tool, you're going to at least see what's different about QuoteWerks. And if QuoteWerks is the tool that you're using, you're probably going to learn something about, oh, I didn't realize that's how I do this one thing. So you're going to walk away learning something. What that is, we don't know because it's person independent, right? We have a lot of people here using an MSP focused payment platform today. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide. What I do want to say though, is to those of you, yes, there will be a recording. So anyone that needs to jump for any reason, I totally understand. You've got clients to support. I'll email everyone the recording. So for those of you that are still working with something like Stripe, Square, Bill.com, you're using a bank platform, you're still collecting checks, you're still experiencing some of this stuff, right? Even if you've automated Stripe to manually charge somebody's credit card on the first of every month, if the invoice changes, you still got to log into Stripe and update that amount getting charged, right? And Stripe typically isn't going to update your QuickBooks. It's not going to update your PSA unless you're using something I'm not aware of. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm just saying I don't think it can do that. So manual payments today can be problematic. But don't worry, Josh and I have solutions for you guys. Right, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things when it comes to accelerating that quote to cash cycle is having a tool that once you've done your magic, once you've gone out and you've discussed the solution with the customer, you've come to a point where you have a solution to present, you need to have a tool that's going to be able to pull all of the different components together in a way that's easy for you. So QuoteWerks has a number of different things that will help you to do that. But it's also important to have that other half of the quote to cash cycle taken care of, right? Because you've got 50% in the quoting and the requirements discussions and the solution positioning, but then you've got that cash piece, right? So how are you actually going to collect payments? So having a flexible payment gateway is super important. Having a way to track activity throughout the quoting process is also important. And then having some flexibility to collect partial payments or provide multiple payment options to customers are other ways that you can make it easier to get that payment actually realized. And I think that's an important thing to mention right there is that getting past that 50% mark is maybe a little bit more than 50% of the work. But when we get to that collecting payments, if you're not collecting a payment, you're not realizing revenue. There's no business benefit. So it's a very important part. So even though it's, let's say 50% of the quote to cash cycle, it's actually super, super important and probably represents more value than you can see at face value. So important to mention that.
Absolutely. So what exactly is QuoteWerks? I mean, I think most of the people here at least have an understanding of what QuoteWerks is. So do you want to give us a rundown of the important pieces?
Yeah. So as it says here, we're definitely one of the leading quoting and proposal tools on the market. And what that means is QuoteWerks gives you the ability to take different products, contacts, services, and combine them into a quote that you can then manipulate in many different ways whether it's applying pricing rules, formulas, formatting, things of that nature, and deliver them in a professional and accurate way to your clients. So what that's enabled us to do throughout the 30 years that we've been in business here at QuoteWerks is to work with over 33,000 different users in 101 countries. And one of the things that also makes us particularly different than a lot of the other quoting tools out there is that we're a privately owned company, and we've been privately owned since the beginning. I think one of the things that you're finding in the quoting industry is that there's a lot of all-in-one solutions. So, our PSA or CRM may have a quoting solution, but it's not their lifeblood. It's not everything that they do. It's more of an add-on or a bolt-on than it is an end-to-end solution. So that's one of the great things about QuoteWerks here is we are an independent, privately owned company. We have an independent, privately owned software that is really good at doing what it's supposed to do. So that's one of the things that really differentiates us. And I thought it was important to mention that there. So that's QuoteWerks.
And you mentioned that the PSA or even the CRM may do some quoting, and I think it is a little more than they just want to check a box, right? They are trying to give you the tools to be able to create those opportunities, create the quotes, and then have that quote turn into things. Whether that means it's creating sales orders and purchase orders, creating contracts because you're selling recurring services like your MSP services, or even creating service tickets, right? So, I mean, I don't want to minimize the fact that the PSA, it's a capable platform. It's just that, what do they say about an MSP who doesn't specialize, right? If you guys are just the all-encompassing MSP, you don't have a vertical industry that you've specialized in, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start to specialize in an industry, like I've specialized in funeral homes, and you start to get to know what these companies are looking for, and you start to get to know their products that they're using, right? So as a quoting platform, you start to know, Josh starts to know what MSPs are looking for. So the quoting tool, now they're able to integrate directly with distributors, and they're able to start to do some more than what the PSA can do. Not that the PSA couldn't do that, but they just haven't had big need to do that because it does enough for what most of their client base does. Would you agree with that, Josh?
Yeah, definitely. And I would just add as well that QuoteWerks, the parent company, Aspire Technologies, was built from an MSP business. It was built from a need to have a tool like this. So not to get too marketing with it, but it's really a MSP tool built by MSPs. So that definitely differentiates us too.
Sure. So you guys have a tool within QuoteWerks called QuoteValet.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about QuoteValet because it accelerates that quote to cash process. And this is also where the payment gateways and alternative payments come in, because you can deliver a quote, you can present a solution, but if you don't do it in a way that makes sense and is relatable for your clients, it's not going to be accepted in the way that it would if you didn't, right? So what QuoteValet is an online delivery and acceptance vehicle. So think of traditional quotes being delivered via PDF, flat PDF. QuoteWerks and QuoteValet takes that to the next level by, instead of having that PDF, you deliver a web page via email. And it gives the customer a lot of flexibility to select optional items and adjust quantities if you wish to give them that option to do so. But even beyond that, what it does is it gives you that insight into, when does a customer first view that quote? Has the customer interacted with that quote in any way? Have they forwarded to any other particular users or activity? And then even going a little bit further, with that interactivity of that quote, we have the ability for customers to sign, and we're compliant with the Electronic Signature Act, and even pay for those quotes directly from that page. So QuoteValet is a real modern and different way to approach the cash part of the quote to cash cycle. And like I said, can certainly help to minimize the amount of time that we spend in that cycle as well, Steve.
And again, QuoteValet isn't, I mean, it is unique, but I mean, it's not so revolutionary. I mean, there are other quoting tools out there. They have the ability to do some of this online stuff. Even the PSA can deliver a quote to somebody, and I think they can even accept or approve the quote. So, what makes QuoteValet different? How does it stand above the rest? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So QuoteValet is a platform that provides some similar functionality to others, but there's a lot more in-app type interaction that you can do with it. And I'll probably show a little bit more about this when we get into our demo. But QuoteValet, again, built by MSPs for MSPs, and provides a platform that is much more robust and gives the user a lot more ability to track customer activity. And that's a big part of it too, right? Is being able to know what the customer is doing, whether it's viewing the quote, paying for the quote, accepting the quote. That really helps us to shine. So Steve, I think you'll find when we get into that demo, there's a number of different things that we can do that either others can't, or we can do it a little bit better.
Well, I look forward to that demo, which I'm pretty sure is coming up real soon. But
Yeah.
you did mention that QuoteValet works a very specific way.
Yeah. Yes. So when we talk about the quote to cash cycle, it kind of aligns a little bit to this slide here, in that you've got the quote creation that you're doing within QuoteWerks. You've got the quote delivery, which is being done within QuoteValet, as well as the customer interaction. So customer being able to change quantities or options, ask questions, upload files. Then you get into quote acceptance, which is going to be the ability to electronically sign and accept the document. Payment is when we get into really the kind of the alternative payment space. QuoteWerks integrates with over 80 different payment gateways, including alternative payments. And what that does is gives us the ability to give you the option to accept payments and be able to directly interact with those payments from within QuoteWerks. And then I thought it's important to also mention here that while it's not a part of the pillars of QuoteValet, QuoteWerks goes a little bit further beyond the typical quote to cash cycle and being able to help with purchasing and fulfillment as well.
Yes. I'd say the purchasing and fulfillment was actually the piece that excited me most when I started using QuoteWerks when I had my MSP.
Yeah. So when we're talking about MSPs specifically, we're talking about the ability to actually hook in to your different distributors, get real-time pricing and availability, so you know when you're quoting something, whether it's in stock and what the price is. But then going a step further and being able to then submit POs and even electronically order from some vendors and distributors as well.
Yeah. Well, earlier you said the magic word, Josh, and that was demo.
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys interested in seeing how QuoteValet works? I see Frank has a question. Can you integrate to require a payment, down payment, in order to accept, convert the quote? Yeah. In fact, I think, Josh, are you showing that right now in the walkthrough?
Not specifically to require a payment in order to accept it, but there is a requirement to request that down payment from the customer. So there's not a way for you to say, if they don't give me a down payment, they can't accept the quote. We're always going to let them accept the quote, right? Because that's a legally binding thing. But you'll still have that displayed to them. And then they'll also have a prompt to then go and pay. And you can even send out payment requests even after the fact as well. So we'll show you a little bit about that in just a minute here.
And he said some more magic words, legally binding. So QuoteValet, I believe, meets all the requirements in the US, at least, for e-signature.
Correct. Yep.
And then how, I know you guys are global, so how does that work in EU, UK?
Well, a lot of those countries have the same standards. It's just, there's not an act for us to be tied to and certified with, if you will. So it works globally. It's just a matter of making sure that you have everything set up correctly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you give us a tour, my man?
All right. So here we are in QuoteWerks, and I'm going to go through basic quote creation, and then we'll get into the delivery process as well. So we're in QuoteWerks Web right here. We do have a desktop product as well, but QuoteWerks Web is quickly becoming our flagship solution. The first step in creating a quote is to open a new quote, which you can see we've got our quote workbook open here. And the first logical step in creating a quote is to actually add in a sold to or shipped to contact, which we do on the sold to ship to tab here. Now, I do want to mention that we do have integrations with CRMs and PSAs. So if you do have ConnectWise, Autotask, Halo PSA, and a long list of others, you can actually, instead of going and querying the QuoteWerks native database, you can actually go and pull in contacts from those connected systems as well. So that's one point of integration I wanted to point out. But like I said, the first step here is to add a contact to your quote, which we've just done. We've added Ryan Dan from Computer Hut to our sold to, ship to, and bill to fields. Then you want to go and you want to populate the quote with some products. And there's a number of different ways you can do that. The first way would be if you go into the products icon here, we've got different databases that are connected, whether it be from your CRM or PSA or an internal database where you're storing your products in QuoteWerks. And we also have integrations into Utilize if you utilize Utilize. So being able to
Am I
search.
losing you, Josh?
Can you not hear me?
Is anyone else having issues, or is it just my computer being goofy? I'm okay. Well, then I'll just ignore it. I'm sorry.
No problem. So if you're not familiarized with Utilize, Utilize gives you the ability to query your connected distributors and pull up product descriptions, marketing information, pictures, and real-time pricing and availability. So this is a really cool solution that we have. We also have the ability to query your PAX8 as well. So if you have PAX8 and you regularly sell subscriptions, you can also come and query the products here. Now, I did want to add in products to our quote, but instead of using those, I'm going to use something we'll actually talk about a little bit more detail down the line, which is bundles or pre-configured lists of products. I'm going to go ahead and just assume that we're going to be selling a new desktop bundle. So I'm going to choose my desktop bundle, which has all of these different products. And I'm going to insert, and it's going to add those to the quote all in one shot. So this is just one of the ways that you can minimize that quote cycle time, is by having pre-configured lists of things that you may sell often or often together. So you can see here that has just inserted all of our different products into the quote. Now, one of our products here seems to have a $0 unit cost. So I'm going to quickly go and compare my pricing from my vendors. We've got D&H, Ingram Micro, and TD SYNNEX. See who has the best price and availability. And it appears that our Ingram Micro distributor has the best price and availability. So we're going to go ahead and select them. And you can see that our pricing on the quote is updated accordingly. So now that we have our quote built with our sold to, ship to contact and our products, the next logical step would be to deliver it to the customer. But before we do that, we just got to save the quote. We'll call this desktops and hit OK. Now, when delivering to the customer, all you need to do is come and click on the deliver icon. And when it comes to our print layouts, so if you're going to be sending this via email or PDF, if you will, you have a number of different layouts that you can use to determine how that is displayed to the customer. We're not going to be too concerned with this right now as we're going to be talking about QuoteValet, but know that you could just as easily create this quote, print and preview it, or email it out to your customer in a PDF. Now, what we're talking about here is QuoteValet. So logically, we're going to click on upload to QuoteValet. This is going to start the process of creating that web-based quote representation that I discussed a little bit earlier. So here we can view the PDF file that was created. As you can see, it's just a normal quote in PDF format. It's always available to you and also for your customer as a link in the QuoteValet document. We have signing options. So if you want to have multiple or countersigners for a document, you can include that there. And then reminder options as well, just another tool that you can use to reduce that time to cash cycle by saying, hey, if your recipient hasn't viewed the document in a certain number of days, if the document's about to expire in a number of days, or if it's been accepted or not paid after a certain number of days, you can choose to have the recipient, so the individual you're selling to, or I should say, the sales rep get a reminder there. So that's just another tool that you have to make sure that your quotes are being viewed, are being executed on before they're expired, and also being paid as well. Now, once we have all of those settings set up there, we're going to upload our quote to QuoteValet. Takes just a quick second. And then what we would do is we would send an email to our customer with that link. Now, we're actually just going to take a look at that link without sending it via email, just so that we can see it. And this is a representation of what the customer would see. So you see we've got our logo. This would be your logo. We've got different colors that could be changed based on your particular needs. But we've got a basic quote here, right? We've got a prepared for information, a prepared by information. We've got our products here. And then we also have our ability to come in and choose a payment option. So as you would notice, we've got a couple different payment options here, including our alternative payments purchase. Now the customer has the ability, as I mentioned, to ask questions on the quote if they'd like, right here in the have questions section. They can even upload additional information if they want to upload and share additional files with the sales rep. The sales rep can do the same. And then when the customer is ready and they've reviewed the quote and they're ready to move forward, all they have to do is come and use this section here. And I'm actually going to dive back into that a little bit later. So I think this is a good place to pause and maybe get back into the slide deck. But I think this is also probably a good opportunity to talk about what happens after you click to accept. And that's really where, if alternative payments is selected, the alternative payments process starts to come into place. So with that being said, I think it's probably a good opportunity, Steve, for you to talk a little bit more about alternative payments and what alternative payments does.
Well, I am really good at talking about alternative payments. So we've got a really great slide here. I'm not going to bore you with understand why I see why. The slide's wrong. I'm sorry. We now have 60 plus employees. We now have 1,000 plus customers. Everything else on it is pretty much the same. But what I want to talk to you about is, you guys have heard of Kaseya, you guys have heard of ConnectWise, and the two of those companies are like behemoths in the MSP industry, right? And we also probably by now know that they each have their own payment platform. And if you're using one of those platforms, you either really love it or you've got some frustrations, whether with tech support not getting back to you. Maybe it's because you don't feel like they're innovating quickly enough. Maybe it's because you don't like some of the functionality that you feel stuck in, right? We are, I believe, the largest independent payment platform for MSPs. So if we ignore the Kaseya and ConnectWise ones, I believe we're the largest of the other three that exist for MSPs. As you see here, we're doing over $1 billion in processing for MSPs. We now have over 1,000 customers and we've got over 60 employees. So we're doing something right. We also have, I don't know, like 15 or 20 people on our dev team. We just keep adding more and more, and it's phenomenal. All that to say, development, we just keep launching new stuff. And we also have a lot of guys who are minimizing tech debt for us on the back end. I know that is always a concern for MSPs. It was a concern of mine because as you start adding more features, now you've got more and more that can go wrong everywhere else, right? So we've got guys who are focused on tech debt. We've got guys who are focused on new features. But what I haven't told you is what exactly is alternative payments. I'm sorry, I should have led with that. I ramble. We're a payment platform, okay? So if you guys have ever paid a bill online, like an electric bill or a water bill, you've probably used a payment portal before, right? It's 2025, of course you have. But we give MSPs like you a payment portal. The difference with ours versus some of the other ones is ours is like really pretty and it's really easy for your customers to use. It's also really easy for you to use. And we have done our very best to streamline and automate everything from delivering I almost said quote, delivering the payment invoice to your customer, sending out reminders if they haven't paid it, helping them set up auto pay so that way you get paid faster. We will mark the invoice paid in your PSA and in QuickBooks or whatever accounting solution you're using. We will create the deposit in QuickBooks for you. And why that matters is, let's say you get like 35 payments today, right? Well, that means there's 35, let's just say for simplicity's sake, they're all for $1,000. Now you've got $35,000 that's getting deposited as one big lump sum into your bank account. Well, when we create that deposit, we are actually linking all of those payments to the deposit in QuickBooks for you. And then if you had to pay any like credit card fees, we also attach that to the deposit. That way, when QuickBooks downloads the feed from your bank, it just has that, what is it, green? It says match right next to it. You just click the button and it matches and everything is automated for you. Because of that, we're reducing, human error, and we're just making it easier and faster for MSPs. So with that said, if you're here, it's because you're trying to speed up the quote to cash process for yourself. It's because you think building quotes takes too long, getting paid takes too long. We are but a piece of that puzzle, right? So is Josh with QuoteWerks. But if you're interested in how alternative payments could fix some of this problem for you today, then I have a simple request. Just let us know. I'm going to launch a poll here. If you say, sure, a conversation couldn't hurt, we'll reach out to you. We'll see if, we'll pick a time and we'll figure out how we can help you. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We get it. But I think we can help a lot of you. Okay. With that said, I'm going to show you just a few screens of alternative payments. Not because I'm afraid to demo things, but because our platform is so easy that all I have to do is show you a few pictures. And also because it's a payment portal and you know how demos go when payments are involved and I'm afraid to demo things. But no, it's a real simple platform. So I would love to help any of you guys who are interested. I do have a question here. I'm going to leave that poll up for a minute. The CRM or PSA integrations and payment gateways work in the same way on both the desktop and web platforms. Oh, okay. So someone asked, is there any limitations to any of these integrations if you're on QuoteWerks, but not on QuoteWerks Online yet? So yeah, I mean, QuoteWerks Online works a lot better if you're on a Mac like me, right?
Yeah, I mean, really the functionality is very much close to one-to-one. The desktop is our, I don't necessarily call it a legacy solution, but our cornerstone solution, if you will. It's been around for those 30 years that we've been here. QuoteWerks Web at the same point still provides all of the same functionality with some minor differences. And we're always improving and adding to what we do in QuoteWerks Web. So example of that is we're currently working on adding online ordering to QuoteWerks Web for distributors, which is something that we do in desktop. But majority of what you can do in desktop is available in web, and integrations are some of the first things that we started with. So the CRM, PSA integrations, the alternative payments and payment gateway integrations, those are all the same. Might just be different menus that you need to go in order to set those up.
Yeah. I apologize. I forgot a slide. So the process of how we integrate with QuoteWerks is real simple. In fact, let me put Josh's screen back up here real quick. So you'll see there's that little thing that says alternative payments purchase, deposit amount, 131608. So that's, if you do some quick napkin math, that looks like a 50% deposit on the total quote value, right? So Do they have to pick a payment option and then before they can click to accept?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. But once they accept, they don't have to proceed and actually do the payment. They could just click away and it's still accepted.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So that answers the question from earlier. All right. So with that said, your customer receives your quote. Your customer accepts the quote. They choose alternative payments as their payment option. And what that's going to do is that's going to redirect them to the alternative payments portal. They're going to sign in and then they'll make their payment. You'll receive confirmation that they've paid. The invoice is created to track the payment against until you complete your PSA workflow. So we'll create that temporary invoice for you so that way you can accept the payment. Everything is kosher from there. I think that's the right way to use that word. And now you get your deposit. And depending on how quickly you've configured alternative payments to give you your money, you could have it as soon as the next business day. So what that means for you is, they've requested some hardware. You've requested some money. They've paid you. Tomorrow you can order it if you really want to wait and control cash flow, and you don't become the bank for your customer. Boom. Everything moves quickly now for you.
Nice.
So if you guys have questions on that process, I will do my best to answer them. We can do that later in the AMA. Meanwhile, let's talk about some QuoteValet templates, man.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on a couple different areas around, how we at QuoteWerks accelerate the quote to cash cycle. And as we discussed, QuoteValet is one of those. Now, in QuoteValet, you have the ability to customize what's being displayed to your customer in a number of different ways. So there's a template editor that we have where you can actually go in and, like I said, change the fonts, the colors, the icons, the logos, all those different things to make it more in line with your brand standards. Now, in addition to that, you have the ability to put in different service agreements and terms and conditions. You can also pull in that information, as I discussed, from Eatalize and display those on your quotes. And you can also make different templates depending on what it is that you're delivering, whether it be hardware or service, whether it be a proposal versus a standard quote. QuoteValet templates give you a lot of flexibility, and having the right template is going to help you to make it easier for the customer to navigate the quote, to accept the quote, and ultimately pay. Now, in addition to quote templates, I wanted to also talk a little bit about bundles as well. And we actually already showed you what bundles are when I created that quote. But again, very important part as it relates to decreasing the amount of time that you're spending in the quote to cash cycle, because you're able to take pre-configured lists of items that are commonly sold together, add them to the quote in a single click, and it eliminates the need for your sales reps to go in and create these bundles on the fly. So if you're selling products that are similar or that are complementary to one another often, bundles is a great solution for you. In addition to bundles, we have the configurator as well. And the configurator plays into another acronym that we don't really talk about too much in this particular presentation, but that's CPQ, so configure, price, and quote. The configurator gives you the ability to predefine how users are going to walk through a step of different options that they have. So this tree that's presented on the screen is representative of that process. So if someone chooses one option, the next list of options that they're going to have is going to be based on the option they selected. So giving you the ability to make sure that progression is based on each product selection, and also make sure that the complementary products that are included on the quote and are accurate to the configuration as well. So bundles and configurator are independently their own great solution, but the configurator output actually creates a bundle for you within the quote as well. So just going a little bit step further into that configure, price, and quote process.
Wonderful. So QuoteValet, it looks really capable. So how do we set it up?
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy to do. First thing is you need to be licensed to have it. And when it comes to our web platform, there's a balance plan, and that's what's going to be required in order for us to to utilize QuoteValet. Now, a couple things you're going to want to do is you're going to go in and change your logo. You're going to want to put in potentially a custom CNAME, add in links and or pictures that you might want to display on the quote. And that's done via your templates. And then you want to set defaults as well. So defaults for your reminder options, defaults for who you want those emails to be delivered by, what email you want them coming from. And then there's some security as well involved, like DKIM, domain keys identified mail, that ensure that these quotes are being delivered and appropriately signed when they're being delivered as well, eliminating the potential for them to be caught in spam. So the setup itself is actually very simple. I'm not going to go into it today, but there's just a couple pieces that you want to put in place and you're ready to go and ready to use QuoteValet in just a couple minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Here, I got to close that. Here, I'll fix that. All right. So now integrating, whether it's alternative payments or something else, integrating stuff in QuoteWerks, pretty easy, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple steps to get to the point where you have the display like we showed before for alternative payments to be on the quote. Can be done in just a couple steps. And all you really need to have is a custom invoice URL from alternative payments, and you're enabled to get everything set up pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to walk us through?
I don't want to get into the setup so much as I just want to show the completion of the QuoteValet process and how it ultimately integrates in with alternative payments. I tend not to try and complicate things by showing setup because it's the boring stuff, right? How does it work? That's what's really important for us.
That's fair.
Yeah, so here we are back on the QuoteValet page. You can see that I've selected alternative payments as my payment option. I'm going to just go ahead and simulate the customer accepting the payment or accepting the quote, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to hit click to accept. It's going to take a second to just process through, and it's going to bring us to the acceptance page to say, hey, thanks for accepting the quote. And if you choose to do so, you can enable your customers to pay from this page as well. And that's why we have that pay now button here. So the next step with a customer accepting a payment would be to click on the payment, or accepting a quote would be to click on the pay now button, in which case they're brought to the make a payment page. And you can see that our alternative payments option is here selected because that's the one that we chose. The customer can choose to pay their deposit, or they can choose to pay in the full amount here as well. And when they're ready, all they have to do is click pay or make payment, and it's going to bring them to their custom portal with alternative payments. And this is where they would go through, sign in, pay, and you would receive your payments directly through alternative payments.
Beautiful. And that's perfect. And honestly, if anyone's interested, I can show you guys what the customer sees with alternative payments, once they sign in and pay. But it really is, it's okay, yeah, someone would like to see it. So let me log in here. Let me click some buttons. We're gonna do it live, folks. We're gonna see what happens. All right, so I'm gonna sign into our demo environment. This is what happens every time I sign in to the demo environment. I don't know why. I broke something. I swear this is not what is going to happen to you when you sign into the real environment.
Steve, when you do a demo, the gremlins always like to come out. I can attest to that.
Every single time. All right, so this is what you see when you're signed into the demo environment, okay? Or I'm sorry, when you sign into alternative payments. If I were to go to my customer screen, and let's just pick a customer. They have an invoice. If I hit impersonate customer, I am now literally acting as if I'm that customer. You have that ability to impersonate your customers. Do it legally, of course. So when they get signed into our portal, it would look something like this. And again, this is not normal, and I think it's because I'm using Safari, if I'm being honest. Okay. So they'll see a list of all their outstanding invoices. They can pay the invoice, which would then take them to that screen that they would see had they signed in from that where you saw Josh earlier. Okay. So this is what happens once they sign in. Beautiful, elegant, just like I said. It'll show them the invoice number up in the top. They can click this button to download the invoice. They could schedule the payment if it wasn't already past due. And then they can choose how they're going to pay. Now, you can give them the option to pay with credit card, with a bank account, however you want them to pay. And then if they were to add their card information, I'm not going to do that because here, let me see, maybe I can disable. I need to disable my 1Password extension because I'm not trying to show you guys all that. There we go. Okay. Steve Taylor. I think that will work. And then we'll do United States of America. There we go. Great. So now I added a credit card. Okay. No fees applied for debit cards. It's actually a debit card. And then you give it the security code, confirm.
Hey, Steve, that's actually probably a good question or moment to talk about a question that came in. Seth had asked if the quote payment area in QuoteWerks could have multiple payment options for alternative payments, because I believe they saw that there were some options in there with a % charge or a discount based on the payment method. Now,
yeah,
in QuoteWerks, we're just going to have the one alternative payments option, but it sounds like once they go into their portal, that's where they could potentially have those fees or discounts applied. Is that right?
that is correct. So yeah. So if I come in here to team preferences and I go to customization, you can choose what payment methods your customers can use. So you can give them the option to pay with an ACH debit, or we're launching in like a matter of days in Canada. So if you're Canadian, it would be like EFT or, whatever. You can do credit card. You can even offer installment plans. And what that means is, let's say you're trying to close a big like $10,000, $20,000 server deal, or you just sell somebody 20 computers, but they need to manage their own cash flow too. Alternative payments can extend them credit. It's anywhere from like 3 to 8%, depending on how long they want the like net 150, for example, right? So that's 5 months. So 8% for net 150, and you get paid the whole thing up front, and then they pay us monthly, and we keep the money because we already gave it to you. There's this checkbox here for past credit card fees to customers. So if it's a credit card, not a debit card, you are allowed to pass those fees to your customers. Asterisk, check your state's local laws. Customer exceptions, you can granularly say, you know what? I just signed Jim's company and I promised them I wouldn't charge them credit card fees. So I'm just gonna there. Now Jim's company doesn't get credit card fees. You can also choose to cover credit card fees if the customer does auto pay using their credit card. So we give you guys a lot of flexibility. I'm sure there could probably be more, but I feel like this is a lot of flexibility. But we can't possibly think of every single outcome, right? But that's how that works. So when they're on this screen, so this assumes it's a debit card, which is why it says no fees applied. If it thought it were a credit card, then it would show the 45-cent credit card fee, which would be 2.9% plus 30 cents. Okay. So that's why that's there. Okay. And then if they hit pay invoice, it pops this up. It shows them any fees that would be applied, and then confirm payment. And then, it's a demo environment, so nothing actually ran. But they can even hit this button to enable auto pay. So they can just auto pay everything using that credit card and confirm and done. So not only have they paid that invoice, they've set up auto pay for all future invoices. And that's alternative payments.
Seems pretty easy, Steve.
That's what we're going for, man. And then literally everything else that happens is all automated. So we've marked the payment. We've marked the invoice paid in, which one am I in? This is, I don't know, integrations, QuickBooks and ConnectWise. So we marked it paid in both of those. We're going to create the deposit in QuickBooks. We'll link any payments. We would associate any credit card fees. It's all automated. I think it sends a receipt. I don't remember that. And that's like one of those getting into the weeds kind of things, but yeah, it's all taken care of, guys.
All right. Steve, we had a couple of questions come in while you were talking. So we're coming up to the end of the hour. I just want to maybe ask one or two of them here. One of them is from Frank. If our invoices are created and sent with ConnectWise, would that not allow the client to pay now from QuoteWerks? Now, that being said, you can always present that pay now button. It's just a matter of how you're going to process it afterwards. So you actually can export your transactions from QuoteWerks to ConnectWise utilizing QuoteWerks. But I think the other piece to it too is once they've gone through and made a payment through alternative payments, you can then sync those invoices over to ConnectWise as well, right, Steve?
Yeah, and that's another one of those fuzzy. So I told Divana I'm going to have someone reach out to her. She's already a customer. So I just don't know how some of the inner workings work when it comes to using the quoting tool, paying something, because technically the invoice doesn't exist yet, right? Because in QuoteWorks, you haven't gone through and turned that quote opportunity, marked it as one, turned it into a sales order, purchase order, ticket, invoice, right? You haven't done any of that stuff yet. They've simply marked it as approved. So, Annette, I will have someone to reach out to you. Lori, debit cards, my understanding is do not incur fees. So yeah, Mickey, someone can reach out to you as well. Frank, if you're a customer, I can have somebody reach out to you. If you're not, we'll reach out anyway. Whatever you want, man. Yeah. So Frank, Annette, Mickey, Divana, we'll have someone reach out to you guys. So you can talk specifically about your use case with QuoteWerks, alternative payments, your PSA, and what it looks like to get quotes paid before the PSA process has actually created the invoice. Okay. We'll take care of that for you. As Josh said, we are at the top of the hour, which is insane. The good news is the AMA is basically like the next thing, right? So you guys asked us some questions. Does anyone else still have questions that you guys want us to answer?
Not seeing anything come in here, Steve, but if anything comes in between now and when we close out, we'll follow up with those individuals directly.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to pop up. Here's a slide with the QuoteWerks info. It's even got Josh's email address. So, if you guys want to just drive over to Orlando and take Josh out for tacos or something, that's the address. I don't think he needs an appointment for tacos. He does need an appointment for other things. We have an office in New York City. I am not in New York City. I'm in Ohio. If you would like to take me out for tacos, I'm near Akron. But We've got an office in New York. We've got an office in Toronto. We've got an office in Vancouver. We are all over the place. We're doing big things, like I said earlier. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to check for any more. Does QuoteWerks have instructions online for setup?
Yeah, I'm getting those over to Mickey here now.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I'm getting those over to Mickey now.
Beautiful. So that's good. And then as we disabuse ourselves of ConnectWise, this is great to know that QuoteWerks will easily replace our CPQ. It absolutely can. We at Alternative Payments, we integrate with ConnectWise PSA, AutoTask, Halo PSA, SuperOps. So if any of you guys are jumping ship from one, we can at least support you if you go to one of those others. Okay. And even if you don't use one of those, we've even got some clients that are using Synchro, and we just don't integrate with Synchro, but Synchro integrates directly into QuoteWerks. So we can still work with those invoices in QuoteWerks. And then if you are a ConnectWise user, we now offer ConnectWise Invoice Sync. So if that is a frustration of yours, you love the PSA, but maybe the sync tool isn't working so hot, we now have a sync tool that can probably solve those problems for you.
Now, Steve, I think we forgot one thing, which is I want to give everyone here the opportunity to potentially connect with our team too, if they'd like. So if you could just pop up that poll for us real quick. It's just going to be a poll to say, similar to Steve's, do you want to talk to us? And if you do, we'll reach out. Otherwise, we'll just go from there. But if you want to publish that poll while we're kind of ending up here, I'd appreciate that. Give everyone the opportunity to engage with us.
You got it. It looks like almost everyone has answered, and they're already customers, Josh.
Hey, that's cool. I like it.
Cool. All right. Devana has a demo for QuoteWerks online set up for next week. Love it.
Yeah, Devana.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate everybody. If you have questions, you can find me or Josh on LinkedIn. I'm Steve Taylor on LinkedIn. He's Josh Lockheed. Or you can shoot us emails. My email I'll put in the chat. And I'm sure Josh can put his in the chat as well. So there's that. We'll close this out here in another 15, 20 seconds. Josh, do you have anything else you want to let people know before we wrap?
I would just say, considering the fact that many of you are already existing QuoteWerks customers, keep an eye out for our continued webinar series and our different help files and videos that we're always publishing. It's definitely something to keep in mind because we always have new content coming out. So love to see you in future webinars.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, everybody. And we'll catch you next time at the next webinar. Take care, guys.